Welcome. In this video, we are going to discuss themes in the play of Inheritance by David Mulwa. Theme number 1, Inheritance. Inheritance refers to what is left by the deceased to the family in material wealth or sometimes power. However, the word could have diverse meanings when applied to works of literature. In this respect, David Mulwa looks at inheritance in various ways. The play revolves around a 3 decades-old Cuchula under its new leadership. Having achieved independence from colonial masters, Cuchula is now governed by Lacuna Casu, the son of pre-independence King Cuchula Rumi XV. Lacuna ascended to power after the death of his father. Although the king has adopted Princess Sengoy as his successor, he dies mysteriously, thus handing the power to the greedy, self-centered Lacuna. As it were, Lacuna conspired with the colonial masters to assassinate his father King Cuchula Rumi XV. Having assumed power with the help of colonial masters, Lacuna runs the government under the influence of Cuchula's former imperialists. He receives hefty loans aimed at developing the country. However, the loans are meant to make Cuchula a slave of foreign saboteurs led by old Daniel Goldstein and young Robert Rollerstone. Even though Cuchula boasts of being an independent state, there is a lot that suggests that the country inherited the former colonial legacies. For instance, the Daniel Goldstein's company bankrolls Cuchula. Without their loans and donations, Cuchula's economy is bound to collapse, as seen in page 72. Secondly, when Goldstein points out how blatant misappropriations of funds were in Cuchula, he assumes power and even sits on Lacuna Casu's throne just to show who exactly was in power in Cuchula, as seen in page 79. Therefore, Cuchula was a sovereign nation under imperial powers. One of the reasons King Cuchula was assassinated was because he was tired of being treated as a slave by colonial authorities. He wanted liberation on Cuchula terms, not the terms set by the imperialists. He had demanded for total independence, a privilege the superpowers were unwilling to extend. In order to control Cuchula and perhaps harvest humongous profits from her mineral wealth, the colonial Bishop Menninger suggested the appointment of the greedy yet brainless Lacuna Casu, as seen in page 15. With Lacuna in office, the colonialists continued to enjoy the same privileges they had enjoyed during the colonial period. On the other hand, the people of Cuchula would suffer in poverty and bad governance, as they had during the reign of Thorn Mackay, the colonial governor. However, the people believe that the conditions were better off during the colonial period. The play explores inheritance and its pains to the society. As it were, the people believed in their leaders, especially King Cuchula. On the one hand, locals believed that King Cuchula had blessed Princess Sengoy, later Reverend Sengoy, as the rightful heir to the throne. While on the other hand, the colonialist hatched a plan to swear in the legitimate child Lacuna Casu as the new leader. Therefore, the struggle was between the rightful heir and the chosen one. In this case, the rightful heir won, but is thrown out of office in a bloodless coup led by Romanus Bengo. As can be seen, inheritance maintains the status quo, but a fresh breath of new leadership brings to the table new ideas, which can be optimistic for the people. In the play, Reverend Sengoy represents a fresh new leadership that would agree to negotiations with foreign investors as opposed to dictation, as seen in Lacuna Casu's regime, where foreigners enjoyed while locals suffered in slavery and poor pay. Theme number 2, Poverty. From the beginning of the play, we are introduced to abject poverty of the people of Cuchula. It is one of the reasons as to why Governor Thorn Mackay, the colonial leader, cannot agree with King Cuchula Rumi XV. On one hand, Thorn wants the king to silence the surging rebellion in the colony, while on the other, the king is seen to side with the rebels. According to the king, he cannot sit there and support what the white masters are doing. Riding on the will of the people, he tells the governor that he has no control over the people, but is ready to deliver the people from suffering. This is the reason Thorn and Bishop Menninger conspired to eliminate the king in the prologue. Over 3 decades after independence, the people of Cuchula are still poor. In independent Cuchula, the people are burdened by heavy taxation, huge international debt, and wanton land grabbing by their leaders. Besides these, the leadership is embroiled in massive corruption, nepotism, and favoritism. The leader Lakunakasu is as greedy as he is incompetent. However, he is supported by foreign saboteurs who really control the goings on the state. These foreigners finance forced evictions of people from ancestral land for development and also mining rights. With the leaders at the mercy of the foreigners and the wanton greed in the leadership, poverty is the order of the day. As can be seen in Tamina's sparsely furnished grass-thatched house, families have little to live for. Tamina can barely feed herself and her daughter. She cannot also afford her daughter's school fees and the never-stopping need for money in the school. As can be seen, poverty is caused by various factors in Cuchula, chief among them being the leadership of Lakunakasu. As a leader, he has chosen a cabal of sycophants as counselors and his chief advisors. These group of the elite have awarded themselves large chunks of land and hefty payments through graft which have left Cuchula bankrupt and the general population poor. If the government has no funds, every citizen is overly taxed in order to raise funds. Besides, the government may resort to austerity measures like firing older citizens from jobs in order to reduce the wage bill as seen in page 38. Judah Zen Milo speaks about how he has to keep with younger men in order to maintain his job. As can also be seen, there are very little job opportunities in Cuchula with a large pool of the unemployed. Another cause of poverty in Cuchula is government policy. Cuchula's policies are mostly geared towards promoting the welfare of the foreigners. First, the government deprives the people water by building a white elephant dam, as seen in page 17. The dam made the entire valley dry. The second policy is evacuation of people to create land for foreign investment. This is one factor that creates a quiet rebellion in Cuchula. Theme number 3, NeoColonialism. After independence, many countries that were granted independence found themselves drawn towards their former colonial masters. Such countries were drawn by incentives such as the Commonwealth, foreign aid, and the promise of assistance in economic development. Those countries or leaders who refused such arrangements were either assassinated or removed from power. In this respect, the colonialists found themselves coming back as expatriates and financiers for development. In Cuchula, the king who had a vision for his people is assassinated. In his place, the colonial players put his greedy son as the new leader, democratically elected. In this way, the former powers made leadership decisions for the people of Cuchula, even though the people's favorite was Princess Sangoy, although the power arrangement has changed from kingdom to a democracy. Lakunakasu seemed to retain the pre-colonial title of king. Lakunakasu is controlled by two international financiers, Robert Rollerstone and Daniel Goldstein. Goldstein is as old as Lakuna, but Robert is way younger. On his part, Daniel plays the good cop. He appeases Lakuna while defiantly asking for more concessions from the country. On his part, Lakuna needs more money to run the country. The colonialists knew how greedy Lakuna was, and they planned to use Lakuna's greed to profit from Cuchula's silver mines and rich agriculture lands. Although the country has rich mineral resources and people are working tirelessly in the mines, the country can't sustainably pay for the loans. Goldstein still demands for more. Indeed, Lakuna's greed may have sent the mines to bankruptcy. However, if that was the case, then Goldstein would have frozen aid long ago before things got out of hand. They continued supporting Lakuna because they benefited from the mines and also from the loans they extended to the state. Robert, on the other hand, is the bad cop. Using business voice, he threatens Lakuna to pay up the building loan installments as had been agreed upon. He goes even further to claim that he could access Lakuna's foreign accounts and use the money to repay for the loans. The foreigners show Lakuna that he could be running a sovereign nation, but without money, he was just useless and dependent on their mercy. Theme number 4, religion. Many times when we talk about religion, we look at Christianity and other major religion in the world. Although these religions play major roles in literature, there are still many other religions that writers and playwrights also discuss in their works. In this play, Christianity and Quechua traditional religion play a significant role. However, the role played by these two religions is negative. The play clearly brings out how religion can be applied subjectively to the people. During the colonial era, Bishop Menninger made sure to preach about obedience and humility in order to make the people of Quechua submissive. Besides, he used the sermons to get to know the people, especially the young generation. It is within his teachings that he came to learn that Lacuna Casu would make a fine leader for Quechua, as seen in page 15. Menninger also observes that Princess Sangoy would be no bother, since she was enamored by the foreign religion. According to the bishop, Sangoy would be lost in the corridors of academia to worry about leadership. He was wrong, as can be seen in the play. The teachings of humility and obedience seem to have stuck in Quechua even after independence. Coupled with traditional teachings, they have reduced the people of Quechua into fearful sufferers, including the leaders. Although some like Romanus Bengo and Lulu are waking up to reality and condemning this act of cowardice, the rest are still in the murk, as seen in page 30-47. Lulu has woken up to realization that being godly does not mean being stupid and afraid, and points it out to her mother. Her mother, Tamina, is afraid of those in power, that the only person she can raise her voice to is her daughter. She represents the voiceless who suffer under the laws meant to benefit those in power. Traditional religion is propagated by Counselor Malapoa. Using his understanding of his traditional religion, Malapoa propagates male chauvinistic ideologies, which are meant to satisfy Lacuna Casu's insatiable lust for innocent girls. Malapoa postulates that in order for Lacuna to keep his position, he needs to appease the gods by sacrificing a pure, untainted girl in the former king's chambers. This tradition was meant to prey on unwitting parents, and thus let the leader defile young women in the name of tradition. Theme number 5. Activism or opposition. Activism involves standing against what can be perceived as a social, political, or economic ill in the society. It takes different forms, including enlightening the masses through publications, both fictional and factual. It can also include civil disobedience through protests, among other ways. In most occasions, activism is a peaceful process whose main agenda is to bring about change in the perceived wrong. However, some protests have turned violent, leading to death and destruction of property, for example, the Soweto massacre in South Africa. Nevertheless, such cases occur when those in power decline to give protesters the needed freedom to express what they feel is wrong. Other instances have seen those in authority arrest activists and put them behind bars for standing against them. Many activists die in the hands of brutal police force and bad governance. However, in inheritance we come across arrests, as can be seen in the case of Romanus Bengo. Bengo could have been a victim of assassination had his brother Judah Zenmilo been a cold-hearted murderer. According to the play, Judah had been asked to take care of Romania Bengo, but he declined. Judah ended up losing his lucrative job in the government, as seen in page 23. Activism did not begin with Romanus in the play. It began with the late King Quechua 15. The king refused to betray his citizens in the prologue. Since he was such an exceptional king, he was poisoned by his own son. See page 15. Other activists in the play are the Reverend Princess Sangoy and the young Lulu. Lulu seems to have been converted into activism by his activist uncle Romanus Bengo. She speaks confidently against the fear that has been instilled to the people by the government to the shock of her mother, a scene on page 30. Besides Lulu, her two brothers and several elders too join in the resistance against Lacuna Casu's regime. In the play, the people are tired against colonialism and the grasp the former colonial masters have on the new independent Quechua state. Furthermore, They are tired of the increased nepotism and plunder of national resources by Lacuna and his clansmen and loyalists like Malapoa and Chipand. They are crying for openness in governance and an end to colonial policies. Theme number 6. Sycophancy. This is the act of pleasing those in authority in order to gain favors. After ascending to power, Lacuna Casu made sure that he appointed people who were loyal to him and would do anything to please him. Chief among the loyalists was Councilors Chipand and Malapoa. Malapoa invokes traditional teachings and practices in order to ensure that Lacuna Casu was well respected and adored as the chosen leader of the people. Even though Lacuna was unpopular because of his poor leadership, Malapoa ensured that the leader was confident that he was well received by the ancestors and popular among his subjects. On the other hand, Chipand was the liaison between Cuchula and his foreign friends. He knew all Lacuna's secrets, including the foreign accounts. Both counselors are well rewarded. For example, Chipand has a huge coffee farm in which Tamina works. People who refused to show their loyalty was punished and denied jobs in Cuchula. When Judah was asked to get rid of his activist brother, he refused to obey the Lacuna. Therefore, he was beaten and left for the dead. Besides, his job was taken, and he spent the rest of his life trying to win Lacuna's favor. End of themes in Th. Epley. Thanks for listening.